Hello and welcome to Channels Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumu, and it's great to be on this show where we talk all things books. And we've got one book to review today. Well, recently a video hit, let me use the word hit all of us. I mean, that's the kind of impact this had when a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the floor of the Senate practically confessed that he had used his influence to influence his wife, who was president of Court of Appeal. And it was such a scary thing to realize. I mean, we've all been hearing about how the judiciary might have been compromised or might be corrupt and all that. But hearing that straight from the floor of the Senate to somebody married to the president of the Court of Appeal was really scary. And you begin to wonder, those of us who don't have money, what hope, what happens in the courts? Are the courts for the highest bidders and all that? But somehow, at times you convince yourself that's not real. That's not what it meant. Maybe it meant something else and all that. You just don't want to believe that is happening in your country. But, well, it is. That's a blunt truth. It's happening. And we all know it's just that these things just come to confirm. And then I stumbled on this book, Perceived Corrupt, Memoirs of a Nigerian Judge. And at the point in time, I had to drop it and just, This book is so revealing. Our guest today, the author of this book, is going to share with you, with all of us, insights into what he has written here. He reveals so many things happening in the judiciary in Nigeria. This coming from somebody who has been on the bench, who was on the bench for so many, many years before he retired. And then coming to you, hearing straight from the horse's mouth, you just have to worry, you just have to wonder, where's Nigeria going? Let's dive in. We're going to introduce to you a very distinguished author for today. And of course, his book, Perceived Corrupt. Enjoy this.
Miakpo Emiaso retired as the president of the Area Customary Court, Delta State, and is currently a senior lecturer at the Delta State University Faculty of Law. Emiaso holds a master's degree in law from Lagos State University and a PhD in law from Delta State University. He is a lecturer of law at the Times Journalism Institute, Lagos, and an examiner assessor in the business law paper of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICAN. Emiaso has authored several books including Law, Practice and Procedure, Modern Customary Courts in Nigeria, Cooperative Societies, Law and Practice in Nigeria, and Landlords and Tenants under Nigerian Laws, among others. He joined Channels Book Club to discuss one of his books, Perceived Corrupt, Memoirs of a Nigerian Judge.
Milord, welcome to Channels Book Club. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so very much, Kunle.
You're welcome. Now,
Thank you, sir.
you've written quite a number of books, but we want to zero in on Perceived Corrupt, which is your memoir as a Nigerian judge. Basically, you've written here your experiences
That is correct.
as a judge. Yeah. So, for viewers out there who are watching, what is this book about? Can you introduce it to viewers out there?
Well, okay. I mean, the title of the book itself says all there is to say about the book. The focus is on my time on the bench. The inspiration for that title came from a Nigerian reality that the judiciary in Nigeria is corrupt. And that also meant that anybody who served on the bench in Nigeria is also corrupt. Because if you are a part of a corrupt system, then you're seen as being corrupt. And I make bold, at the risk of sounding immodest, that I went through 17 years without compromising justice. You know, a lot of things happen behind the scene when you are a judge like I was. that make people to think that, okay, you're a judge, you're having a swell time, everything is fine. But no, that's not true. Behind the scene, there are pressures which the average Nigerian judge goes through. And I thought I should put a bit of some of those experiences on record.
Okay, my lord, considering the title you have picked, going through your book, I would like to ask, you titled your book Perceived Corrupt, but apart from perception, given your experiences, is Nigerian judiciary corrupt?
Well, it remains a perception. I mean, that is what it is, because as a matter of fact, this question was asked me, and I talked about it somewhere in the book, Perceived Corrupt, when a reporter came to interview me soon after my retirement, and he put that question to me, whether the Nigerian judiciary is corrupt. And I remember saying to him that the Nigerian judiciary is not corrupt, but there are corrupt elements within the Nigerian judiciary. The very fact that there are corrupt elements within the judiciary does not mean that the entire judiciary is corrupt. I cannot possibly say so, that the Nigerian judiciary is corrupt. But I can say that within the Nigerian judiciary, there are individuals who are corrupt. And they are corrupt not because they are in the judiciary, they are corrupt because of who they are. If they were not in the judiciary, they would still remain corrupt.
Thank you for that. I mean, given the many examples you gave in the book, it provided somebody like me, a layman like myself, to get insights into behind the curtain situations in the judiciary. I read about how bailiffs at times are paid money, how counsels, lawyers get extra money from clients, and at times they pay some judges and all that. And the whole insight was quite it was quite I found it very intriguing and very scary. So, and recently, a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, a video came out. The senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria told everybody how he used his influence, to his relationship with his wife, the president of the Court of Appeal, to influence certain things. So you know that story. It's all over the news. It's been trending now for a number of days. So the whole thing just got me very scared, yes, and concerned. What exactly is going on? And how do we deal with this?
Well, first let me say the confessions of the distinguished senator was very sad. It would give anybody a lot of cause for concern. So if you yourself are getting concerned, you are not alone. But the lesson I want Nigerians to draw off from that confession is to appreciate the monumental pressures which a Nigerian judge goes through. As to whether a judge succumbs to pressure becomes a matter of individual difference. I remember when I saw that video, I looked at a portion of my book, Perceived Corrupt, where one Saturday, a gentleman came to my house very early in the morning, knocked the door, and my wife, came to say one Mr. This was at the gate. I was at the door. When I heard that name, I fled up because I immediately remembered that particular individual had matters in my court. When I came out, in fact, till this moment, I am surprised at myself the way I treated that gentleman, because I bullied him and he melted from the place, asking, "What are you doing in my house?" Who told you where I live in the first place? Don't you ever come here again? And he left. This is what I mean by individual differences. What the distinguished senator said leaves me with a very sour taste in my mouth. If he was able to influence his wife as a judge to compromise judgments, then that's very sad. My wife would not even listen to you. If you came to my wife to say, look, talk to your husband, I would never even hear about it, because my wife knew what kind of person I was, what kind of person I am, and would just advise you, just go and do your case and put up a good case. But to say you're going to talk to him while he's still on that case, you want to move your case to another court. So it's a matter of individual differences, and I've tried to explain here in my book that, well, fine. The Nigerian judiciary is perceived by almost everybody in Nigeria, in fact, beyond Nigeria, that the Nigerian judiciary is corrupt. But I'm struggling here to say that, well, okay, we're not all like the Bolkachuas.
Okay, my lord, from your book, I could pick out something stood out for me. The way the judiciary seems primed for corruption. Maybe I didn't get that right when I read it. Please correct me if I got that wrong. But it seems as if the system, not just the judiciary system, the Nigerian system, has set up the judiciary to be corrupt. Is that a right perception?
I think you misunderstood it a bit. If your understanding of it is that it is the norm, like you say, that judges get paid for judgment. No, I didn't say that. But I said there are a few elements within the system who may leave themselves open to be compromised.
Okay.
In writing their judgments. No, we can't deny that. But let us separate judges from court staff, which include the beliefs that you have just referred to. There are court staff who would approach litigants and deceive them that they should bring money that they could give to the judges so that the judgments of those judges would favor them. Sometimes these judges are not aware of any such thing. And I gave a good example of a bailiff who served under me, who went to levy execution of a judgment I had delivered. The judgment debtor paid the judgment debt, but this bailiff insisted that the judgment debtor must pay him an additional 15,000 naira, suggesting that that is what he will report to me with. So for crying out loud, a bailiff, what have I got to do with him? He created the impression that I was in some kind of league with him, doing that sort of thing. My registrar was the one who, appealed to the petitioner that please don't dispatch these letters yet, because His Honor is not on seat right now. Why don't you wait until he resumes from his leave so that you hear his side of the story? That was my saving grace, because nobody would have believed it that I was not in concert, in league with this character, belief, for doing that sort of thing. So, when you say the judiciary is corrupt, most of it actually happened at that level. I'm not exonerating any judge. I'm in a position to do that. But, well, some judges could have their hands soiled, but not everybody, please.
Now, you also wrote something I found interesting. How the lower court judges are disrespected and disregarded, even within the judiciary hierarchy. When I read that, I was like, and you sounded from your writing that it was something that worried you. Um, can you explain that a little bit? Can you provide some insight into that?
The lower court judges, and I was one of them, we are treated like footmats. I would have loved to use a stronger word, but this is television. You can't speak your mind without the system witch hunting you. And like I said, I discussed that in I think chapter 1 of my book. I said, look, yes, okay, it pleased God to put me where He put me in the lower bench. But that did not mean that as at the date that I took office, I was not qualified to be appointed as a high court judge. Of course I was. And I know, at the risk of sounding immodest, that there are some high court judges that are not as brilliant as I am, or as brilliant as my colleagues in the lower bench. We all are lawyers who wrote the same bar exams, and we have been through the same experiences, but Providence will throw some of us that way and the others that way. So the fact that Providence threw any one lawyer on the lower bench, somebody had to be there anyway. We can't all be in the high court bench. Somebody has to do it. So the fact that some of us were stupid enough to accept appointment in the lower bench did not mean that we knew less law. Did not mean that we leave ourselves open to be ridiculed. We are not less lawyers. And it makes me very sad.
Okay, just finally, we've run out of time. In 30 seconds, something you wrote here. After having served and resisting all the temptations, all the attempts at, people try to bribe you over the years and influence judgment, and so many temptations that you shared in your book, in your memoir. You wrote here, was it worth it? For 3 years out of office, I sometimes wonder whether it was worth it. All that self-denial, all the restraints, all the strictness, all the avoidance. Is in this Nigerian society, was it worth it? What did I benefit by it? Was I not being stupid? Is it not said that when one gets a place where everyone walked on his head, it was folly to walk on one's legs? So in just a few seconds, having lived that life, having experienced all that, and denied yourself of amassing wealth, creating wealth from all the opportunities you had, looking back, was it worth it?
The answer to that question is yes, it is worth it. If I have an opportunity to serve again, it would just be the same way. I am not going to leave myself to be corrupted, to pervert justice. No. I appeal to those of my colleagues who are still serving. Yes, things are pretty tough economically in this country, but do not succumb. That is my message. Do not succumb. Make do with the little that you get as salary. Live within that means, and you will survive.
Thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club, and congratulations on your book. It's a pity we didn't get to speak about other books, but I'm sure in the future we'll do that. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Something interesting happened, recently. Kofo Obasanjo Blackshire, the daughter of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, wrote a fascinating book that we reviewed on the show not too long ago, remember, titled Pillars of Statecraft, where she highlighted 6 pillars that are essential for nation building all over the world. Fascinating book. Well, she publicly presented this book at an event that had some of the brightest minds around, including, of course, her father, the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, who was there as one of the panelists during the event. Well, we were there and we enjoyed ourselves. So I hope you enjoy this short report.
Dignitaries from different walks of life are seated to grace the official launch of Kofo Obasanjo Blackshire's debut book, Pillars of Statecraft. Kofo Obasanjo Blackshire is the daughter of former President of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo. Pillars of Statecraft outlines 6 essential pillars of nation building, which had first been introduced by Chief Olusegun Obasanjo at the inauguration of the Africa Progress Group, formerly known as Africa Progress Panel. Kofo Obasanjo Blackshire's pillars of statecraft are protection, prosperity, population, politics, partnership, and the combination of prayer and pleasing God. Entrepreneur, corporate leader, and the chairman of the event, Aigboje Ike Imokwede, in his opening remarks, applauded the patriotic spirit of the author.
This is first and foremost a matter of celebrating intellectual output that is driven by a strong sense of patriotism, both at the national level to her country and certainly to the continent, Africa, and as a global citizen to the whole world.
The book reviewer, Professor Peter Okebukola, on his part, gave a breakdown of the book.
This book, Pillars of Statecraft, is broadly divided into 7 chapters, and the central thesis of the work underscores the importance of 6 pillars. I talk about 5, you're going to see the 6th later, that can enhance growth and development in Africa. The book, through an introduction, provided some of the most prevalent development issues in global politics and explained various concepts such as failed states, failing states, and weak states.
And straight to the official unveiling of the book.
To the glory of this is very exciting.
At the panel session led by Chief Obasanjo, the panelists noted that the population, that is, the people, are the essence of a state. There were other important submissions.
States are not the same, and it matters what exactly these states are. So in terms of the degrees of statehood, you would find that context, the historical context, the social drivers, that lead to forms of statehood would be important. In this regard, there is an argument, there's a school of thought that believes that in most parts of Africa, we haven't arrived at the forms of statehood that would be able to provide the capacities, whether for prosperity or for protection. So maybe we need more prayer than all of these elements.
For me, there's still no substitute for real working democracy to manage any nation, particularly nations with diversity. Poor management of diversity, which led to the breakaway of South Sudan, has continued in South Sudan. And up till now, South Sudan has no peace. So, the point really is, what will our people, our leaders do to be able to manage diversity in such a way that diversity will be an asset, not a liability?
The author explained how father-daughter virtual conversations and learnings during the lockdown birthed the book.
So I finished the course at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and Daddy and I were both in lockdown. So he was here in Nigeria, I was in the UK, both lockdown, and I enjoyed the course so much. I loved everything that I learned, and I was keen to keep that knowledge alive. I didn't want it to just dissipate because everyday life took over. So because Danny was in lockdown, we started this sort of father-daughter virtual learning sessions, because I thought he's the best politician I know. Who better to learn from than him? And what better way to utilize that time while he was in lockdown than to garner his experience, really draw on his experience and everything that he's lived and learned over a lifetime. So that was where the concept came from.
Pillars of Statecraft presents fundamental building blocks for excellence in statecraft and national development.
Interesting. Well, Dr. Kofo Obasanjo Blackshire happens to be a marathoner. She's done 13 marathons. Well, I challenged her. I said, next time you come to Nigeria, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, I'm sure she'll dust me. This is where we have to end the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.